recording. That's recording. Dan, what's going on? Welcome to the podcast. How you doing, man?
Hey, Chris, I'm doing good.
Yeah.
I'm glad we finally got this together, man. It was a couple of times I know that, we kind of missed each other, like passed in the night there, but I'm glad to
It
finally get
happens,
together.
man. People are busy, got stuff going on. And plus, one of the what's hard for me when doing these podcasts, I got to do them usually this late at night anyway. Well, I mean, it's
Right,
not super late, but it's kind of late. They're later
right.
than most people want to work or do it, I think. But
That's
but
right.
this is the only time I can fit them in. So it's really hard for me to get people in here. And I'm just thankful that you were one of the ones who said, yeah, let's do it.
Oh, of course, man. No,
So,
I think you do a good job. So
thank you.
glad to be.
But one of the things, just to get the audience kind of knowing your background a little bit and everything, you seemed like one of these guys who was all about success. You were pouring your heart, blood and sweat and tears and all that, whatever you say, into it, just to try to be this certain person, the perfect life and all that. Then you kind of hit a rough patch. And then that led you down a road where you started learning more about, I guess, human psychology and how people were like, what their passions are. And is that kind of on the
Right,
right?
and how to speak to others. Well, that's pretty good. I mean, the way you speak about it, I would speak about it more that I had an epiphany one day
Okay.
that I wanted to be successful. I wanted to execute them. Make my numbers. That was. It's often we go through these periods and we don't really understand why we're doing what we're doing, right?
Sure.
And for me, it was a core need to be significant in some way. And so, I had some role models that were, let's say, less than ideal in certain ways, but very successful and drove, a BMW and made a certain amount of money, and that really appealed to me, right? Because I wanted to be somebody. I wanted to be successful. I didn't want to settle for second best. I didn't want to have to, worry about whether I could live where I wanted to live or attain a certain and later on in life you look back on that and you realize it's almost a form of insecurity, right? A lack of belief. You feel like you have to achieve these things, these external cues about who you are in order to prove to people that you belong.
Yeah.
And so that statement gets very deep very quickly. So we won't get into that right yet. But in my 20s, I mean, man, I was just really angry a lot, and I was really frustrated a lot, and so that stopped me or interfered with me being able to connect with people the way that I needed to and the way that I wanted to. And I finally had to just sit down and say, this is not healthy. This is not good. This is not the way I want to feel. And why am I doing these things? Why am I acting this way?
Sure.
And that got me into Tony Robbins and NLP. And ever since that point in my late 20s, I've really been a voracious reader of why we do the things we do and how we can create meaningful change in our life, right?
Sure.
And so, and I went on, I made mistakes. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, right? I've been in sales a long time, been in business a long time, and I've made a lot of mistakes. And I wish I'd had someone that had taken me by the hand and said, don't do this. Think about this. Focus on this. Believe in this about yourself. Concentrate on this. Understand this dynamic when it comes to the relationships you're trying to build. And as much as my father loved me and my mother loved me, they did a great job as parents. They didn't have that training. They didn't have that any idea of how to sort of corral and direct me in the right direction. And that's what I really needed. So that's what I try to do now. I try to get with people when they are kind of coming to that point in their life that they've checked all the boxes on the materialistic checklist, and then they wake up every day and they're still just like there's still this big hole in their heart, and they don't understand why, and they don't understand how to move forward from there. So that's what I try to work with people that way. I try to work with sales teams that way. I work with leaders that way. And I'm partnered with a great company. It's Aslan Training and Development. And their entire philosophy is being other-centered. And it supports that we're happiest when we serve, which is a psychological truth. We're happiest when we serve others. So
That makes sense. It's like a servant type of leadership, almost like it's
it's servant leadership. Now we're responsible for results, right?
sure.
And we still have to coach people to execution. But what we find, and especially I think in sales today, is that sales leaders are really more administrators. They look at metrics, they track activity. They don't focus on what we have is we have an expectation that we set. For example, it might be, I want you to make 50 cold calls this week. Well, you can really meet that metric and still underperform, because a call is not a good call. You have to know whether you're executing well, whether you're showing competence in what you're doing, or whether you're just kind of going through the motions. And that is true in a lot of things in life, not just in selling. So we have to learn as leaders, how do we coach our people up? And honestly, the reality is, and this is not just in selling, it's in all facets of business and life. The difficult part of helping someone else is getting to know them and understanding what makes them tick, understanding, how do I motivate you? Why do you get up and come into the office every day? Or why do you get up and dial in every day? What are you trying to do with your life? What goals are you trying to meet? What's important to you? And it may be that they're new fathers or mothers. It may be that they're looking to buy a home. It may be that they want to go on a trip. It may be that they're getting married and they want to pay for those, arrangements and all. Whatever it is, we need to know that so we can help that person understand what we're asking them to do is in their own best interest. And then that's when we have an ability actually to create meaningful change in the lives of others. So I just went down the sales leadership and sales training tunnel there, but that works with individuals as well.
Well, that's a good point. And that's one of the things that I've learned about having these, I guess, long form conversations for an hour on this podcast, that, when you start to talk to people, you learn like what their motivations are, what actually drives them, and just how different each individual person is, rather than just saying like, because some people like yourself, like we said at the beginning, you were all about success and money and driving a BMW or whatever it was. And then where some people were just kind of, I guess they're good enough is good enough. Hey, I'll just take the old Ford Crown Vic and
Right.
work my 9 to 5 and come home to my family and live out my days, and that's good enough for me. And sometimes I wonder if all people I think are motivated, but is it a different gene, or is it learned over time where people kind of decide where they want to be at in life?
Well, it's interesting you say everything is unique. One of the things I've noticed in working with people is when you ask somebody, where do you think you are in your life? Are you successful? And are you happy? Those are the two things you ask. And sometimes people will say, yeah, I'm successful, and they'll tick off all the things they own, right? And then you ask if they're happy, and they'll say, well, not really. I'm still kind of searching for my meaning. I'm still kind of, I'm looking for my purpose. You can't really be successful if you're not happy. Those two things, you can be happy, just happy and enrich in other ways rather than financially, if you know what I'm saying. So people are driven by different things, right? So as I was training and as a strategic interventionist is what I'm trained in, and that's Tony Robbins and Chloe Madanis. And Tony, of course, is neuro-linguistic programming, which is creating new habits, positive habits, and replacing the old habits. And Chloe is all about human needs. So the 6 human needs, I know you've heard of Maslow's pyramid of needs, all of those things.
Oh, yeah.
They're similar, but the difference is that Chloe Madanis talks about the relationships and the needs we have in our relationships with other people, and how our behavior rewards us in some way, whether it's positive or negative. So, and the reason I'm kind of talking about that is if there's 8 billion people on this planet, there's 8 billion different ways to live life, and to be happy in life. And if you're happy, by my definition, you're successful. Whether you are, what would you call it, a medium wage earner, but you've got a wife that you love who loves you. You've got children that are healthy and happy and they're, growing and that know that they're loved and valued. You've got family that you're connected to that love and appreciate you. All of those things are riches, right? I mean, so the people that appreciate those things don't worry so much about an income level. They don't worry so much about the materialistic things like you were talking about. And that's okay. That's the real epiphany there, is it doesn't really, nobody's better than anybody else in this world. And And my dad, yeah, one of the great things, he did many great things in raising me, but one thing was he told me that, nobody knows how to dig a ditch better than somebody that digs a ditch every day.
That's
And
true.
so if you're not digging a ditch every day, then someone who does can teach you something, son. Never forget that, because you can look at it from the outside and think it's easy. But when you're sitting in your chair trying to run a podcast, it's a whole different set of, gotchas,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah, of
So,
course.
you know,
Yeah,
so, but it's fascinating, man. Human psychology is fascinating. I mean,
it is.
when you see people are so wonderful and so capable of joy and happiness and let's say productive lives, and often they're so busy living out their fears that they're not living their dreams. They're so inhibited by, there's many things that seem to get in our way, but it's the feeling of what do other people think, you know
Of
how are
course.
other people judging me, and do I belong. So many things that we do and we see people do is this almost undeniable drive to belong and be accepted. And until you reach a point in your life, you're like, this is who I am, as imperfect as I am. I love myself. Those people that are part of my tribe are going to gravitate to me.
Mm-hmm.
And when they do, I want to hold on to them and love and respect them. Those people that don't appreciate me and aren't on the same wavelength as I am, I want to I want to maintain my distance.
Yeah. Well, it's
And
one
so,
of the things like you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most, right? Whatever that saying is.
yeah, I don't know that I probably will when you say it, but I can't remember.
Yeah, it's something like that, yeah, it goes along that the 5 people you hang out with the most, you're the average of, and so if you're surrounding yourself with people who don't have any goals or expectations in life and just, are okay with mediocrity, that's probably how it's gonna be for you is mediocrity, but then to that point, though, it's like what you were saying, when you do try to take a step outside that circle and then you start to wonder, I guess in human psychology, it's almost like a survival instinct, like, oh, maybe you need to stay in your comfort zone because this might not work out.
Right.
You got a steady paycheck. Don't take this leap of faith because what if your friends are going to think of you? You might look like a fool. You might look like X, Y, and Z. So it's like keep pulling you back in. What is it like crabs in a bucket?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
every time a crab tries to get out, the other crabs are pulling him back down.
That's right. Yeah. 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 It's interesting, but it's true, right? Because what people worry about, this is what I try to share with clients when I talk to them. Your main driver of stress is worrying about things you can't control. So when you're looking outside and your attention is outside and you're worried so much about that person, what they think, and that person, what they're saying, and that person, who they're talking to, and this person, do they really like me? And this person, when your focus is so much outside, you know, you really don't know, who you are. And that's something I think, that a lot of us suffer from. But that leads to stress. You're trying to control other people. You can't control other people. I use an acronym, and actually it came from the Ohio State Buckeyes, which I don't know if you're a
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Ohio State fan, but
I'm not a fan, but I know who you're talking about.
right, exactly. And they used this E plus R equals O, and so it's event plus response equals outcome. And I try to tell everybody to keep that in mind, because the only thing you can control is your response. And you have to know what your outcome is, or what you want your outcome to be, to help moderate how you respond. But
Yeah.
that's the only thing you can control. All of these things going on in the outside world, all of these other issues, all of other people's thoughts, other people's behaviors, you can't change that. But you can control how you respond, you know, and you can work to be a positive influence in people's lives, and you can lead by example, but you can't control other people, right? You
No.
can't. I know when I was young, I'd be late, man. It would be a traffic jam, and I would be like just stressed out. And you just got to realize, I got to let that go, man. That's out of my control.
Mhm.
I'm not going to have a heart attack because I'm late for a meeting when there's a bunch of idiots that don't know how to drive and there's a little rain. I can't help that. And you can't say, well, you should have left earlier. Well, how much earlier should I leave? I mean, what do I do? Every day I'm going to leave 2 hours early. I
Yeah.
mean, come on, man. So, you have to do your best, and that's all you can do, and
It
don't
it's
try to control the things that you can't control.
Is that one of the things that young people, all, men and women get caught up with, like we're talking about success and happiness and that with the modern world today, we're kind of taught, what success is and not really care about what your actual happiness is. And did you freeze up on me? Oh, you're back. Okay. Sorry, my
Yes,
internet likes to freeze up sometimes for whatever
that's
reason.
okay.
Okay. But anyway, like I guess what I was talking about was that, in the modern world today, it seems like life is just going so fast right now that people don't really stop and take think about like kind of what you're saying about success and happiness and what really does make them happy and what actually what can they control and not control, and then they just let this momentum just keep going and building up and they just don't really understand like the effect it's playing on their actual psyche.
No, I agree with you. And I think some of the things you're talking about are, social media, and you can say Instagram or TikTok or whatever, but it's when other people do something and you are sort of envious of that. You have to understand when you see anybody that puts forth a public image, what you're seeing is really the demo. I don't know. I've been in software my whole life. So,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, the
I
the
know.
demo is what you show when it's like, hey, this is everything's perfect, right? This is a controlled environment. I know all of the variables. I know everything. The memory, the CPU speed, the Wi-Fi connection. I've got everything just the way I want it. And now I'm going to show you all things perfect. This is how would look. And that's what you're looking at with everybody on social media. You're seeing a moment in time where they're trying to make everything look as perfect as it can be, and it's not reality.
Exactly.
And it's just like what was it, the photoshopping stuff we've talked about, where they show these images of celebrities or whoever, and they're photoshopped, or you see these um, people, I want to say like Dwayne Johnson or
Yep.
anybody like that, or John Cena or anybody like that, and you think, man, if I work out hard enough, I can look like that. Well, that's not reality, man. That's not reality. And
Mhm.
even if you've ever done any kind of bodybuilding or anything like that, that's a moment in time. Part of the secret of winning in that environment is timing every little aspect to where you're on stage, you get judged, and then after that, it's like you're going to be 80% of that, right? At best. But in our minds, when we see that, we think that's reality, and it's difficult to separate from reality. So we always sort of, there's a saying too. We've done the E plus R equals O, and I always thought it was Confucius that said all unhappiness come from comparison. You know, and
Uh,
it's when you are looking at someone else and judging if you are good enough, you need to back up and work on your foundation, you
mhm.
know, and I think personally for me, faith has a part in that, right? I feel like whether you're a Christian or a Muslim or whatever your religion might be, I feel like believing in something above who we are, above ourselves, it gives us something to aspire to. And it also gives us the feeling that we were created for a reason, right? That we're here, we have a purpose. If we fulfill that purpose, if we reach our divine ideal, then we're doing is the best that we can. We'll never be perfect, but if we're excellent, then we're doing a pretty good job, right, with our life.
Yeah, it gives people
So,
hope, just
right,
depending on what your background is and what you believe and what you don't believe, but it gives people that hope that hey, if I'm staying along the right roads here, making good decisions, and that even though the road might be a little rocky right now, but down the road, I'll be okay.
right,
It might not, I might not think that right now, but eventually, if I trusted myself and trust in whatever, like I said, you believe in, that everything will be okay in the end. And if it's not, then okay, well then it's not the end.
that's right, right. You can always make adjustments, right? And so, but I agree with you. I always feel like, and I try to, it's one of these things. You come to these sort of examples, right? And I always try to explain it as best I can. But it's like if you were to think about the roles that you play in your life and the foundation of who you are under each role. So the values, the character that you bring to each role. Like if you're a parent, or if you're a sibling, right, or if you're a child, or you're a colleague at work, or you're a member of an advisory board or a charity, whatever those different roles are that you play, or that you fulfill. If you were to think of your divine ideal, And by that, I mean, if you were to fulfill your destiny as a husband or a wife, as a spouse, if you were to be the best that you could be, what does that look like? What does that feel like? How does that, what does it sound like? What does it smell like? What is the whole environment like? And when you've defined that for what you're trying to do in your life in those different aspects, then when you start to make decisions, it gives you a framework to work within, right?
Oh yeah.
So if you're if you're following a path towards that ideal and you make a decision that moves off to the left and takes you away from that path, you'll feel that as dissonance. You'll feel that as a buzzing, something's off, sort of an irritation. That I'm not being true to my calling, you know.
Yeah.
And that gives you an opportunity to revisit, and correct course. So it sounds like it sounds hokey, right? It sounds like that can't possibly be true.
Well, I mean, it seems like that's kind of what you were saying earlier, where you said in your 20s you were angry, and that, it seems like you were just, it's not hokey, but it seems like you were just kept going down the right road. And even though you thought it was, and then life gave you a 180, but then you kind of learned something from it. And then, got back up on your horse and kept riding.
Well, that's right. We have no choice, do we?
Yeah. Well, it's either you just lay down in the gutter or you get back up and say, hey, I'm not going to let
That's
this take
right.
me down.
That's right. That's there's the story of the Marines, when they're I forget who they're training, if it's, for the elite classes or what, but you have to scale this big cliff face, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes and when you're in, I don't know how tall, let's say it's 500 feet. Sometimes when people are at 200 feet, they'll freeze, and they don't know what to do. And they're like, man, I've still got a long way to go and I'm really feeling tired. And the instructor will come by and say, it's a 3 foot box, man. So where you're at right now, I want you to find the next handhold. I want you to find the next foothold. And then I want you to keep that 3 foot box.
Yeah.
I don't want you to think about how far it is. I don't want you to think about how tired you are. I want you to think about that one handhold, that one foothold at a time. And if you do that and you can do that, then at the end of your journey, you'll be at the top of that cliff and you will have made it past that obstacle, right?
Exactly.
What we do sometimes is we look at the entirety of what we want and what we think we want. We look at the vastness of the gap we have between where we are and where we want to be, and we think there's no way I'll never get there. When the reality is you don't have a choice. The only action you can take is to take a step forward. That's the only thing you can do. It's the only thing you can control about what you do is taking that step forward. Your choice is what direction do you take? Do you go sideways to avoid the path you should take because it looks too hard, or you're afraid, like you said before,
Yeah.
I'm going to take this leap of faith, but this is the way I need to go this way. This is the way to get to my goal, but it seems overwhelming. You got to stay in a 3 foot box, man. One hand hold at a time, one foothold at a time, and you've got to determine that you're going to do that. You're going to be satisfied if you make 3 steps today. I'm going to be satisfied if I make 5 steps tomorrow. I'm going to be satisfied if I make 7 the day after that.
Yeah.
You just continue to build. The thing about us, our brains, they're so incredibly powerful. One of the things that we do when we practice self-discipline, it builds that strength, builds that skill. We build that strength and we build that skill. And so if something's really hard for you, when you figure out how to do it anyway, you get better. And then it's not quite as hard. You have to continue building the skill, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. As people,
Like
that's one of the great positive things. Anything we practice, we'll get better at.
exactly.
I promise you.
I agree 100%.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but people get scared off. People worry about the entire journey. Again, it's that 3 foot box. For you, it might be that one step forward.
Yeah.
But it's really the only choice you got, right?
Yeah. It reminds me of another saying that, I mean, speaking of sayings that, and I forgot, I think it's Japanese, but it was about this guy who was a samurai, I think. But he said, basically, the quote was, once you see the way broadly, you see it in all things. So it's like, once you understand, like, how to do, whatever it is, how hard it is to climb this, cliff face or whatever, that it's like,
Right.
okay, now I got it, like one step at a time, like the 3 foot box, like you're talking about. Then you take that and put it into anything else that you're doing in life, whatever it is,
Right.
like start a new business, go into sales like yourself. And it's like, hey, it's going to suck at first, and I'm gonna probably get my ass kicked a little bit, but I'll figure it out along the way, and that's part of it.
That's right.
It's like you said with self discipline. It's that it's like a muscle. Like you just keep working out, and eventually, hopefully, it gets bigger and it gets better, and that you learn from everything, and that you strive from it. Yeah, like almost everything we do in life is pretty hard. I think. I mean, yes, some things are. There's probably one exception to everything, but if it's not hard, then what's this? What is it? You probably shouldn't be doing it anyway if it's not hard or something like that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, anything worth it is difficult.
There you go.
If you're going to grow, that's one of the six human needs. There are emotional needs as we get older. There are things like we want to give back, and then growth. Right. So when you want to grow, that requires you stepping outside of your comfort zone sometimes, and that's the thing where, as human beings, I think we're afraid of. If I could, man, when I talk to people and I sense self doubt, or I sense fear, or I sense, like, sometimes you'll get this imposter syndrome. A
Mm,
lot of people feel like, I wish I wish I could instill in them what I see. You know, I mean, I see someone bright. I see someone, that's curious. I see someone that wants to do well, that cares what people think, but has enough confidence to speak their mind anyway, right? Which is, for me, is a really powerful indicator of whether we're going to be companionable. If someone if someone is authentically who they are, even though there are flaws or even differences of opinion, if they're authentically who they are, if they're speaking from the heart with love and respect,
yeah,
I'll love that person. You know what I mean?
of course.
If people are duplicitous, if people are um, trying to pull one over on you, if people are inauthentic, if I feel like I feel like you can trust me with your innermost secrets and feelings. If I don't feel that same way, we're just not gonna
Doesn't
we're
work.
not gonna
Yeah.
right. It's not gonna, if you feel like somebody's get fronting, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
See your puppies back there, man. That's awesome.
Oh yeah. They like to. Well, usually they get up there and just sleep while I do these things. They're like, come on, man. We'll just
You
sleep.
got two? You
Yeah,
got
I got two little wiener dogs, man.
are you got cats as well? I'm just curious.
No, no, no. I'm just a dog guy.
Yeah.
Uh,
I have cats. I'm down to my last cat actually. I had three, and well, I've had, golly, I don't know how many growing up and everything, but I have one left. And he's like our child. My wife and I, we just, like, we dote on him like he was, like, like we were changing his diaper every day or something. It's
I know what
crazy.
you mean, man. But I've never been. I mean, cats are okay. I've never been a huge cat guy, but I've always been fascinated by the people who have these bigger cats. I've just been learning about these last, I guess, year or so. Who have pets. It's like a Savannah cat, but they're almost like little miniature tigers. They're huge, and I saw one on a video. They gave him like a whole chicken breast or something. The thing just took off and was his. I was like, dang,
I
on.
know, I know what you're talking about. They look like a little leopard, right?
Yeah, there you go. That's what I was at.
I can't remember the name of those.
Yeah,
But
they were wild, man.
I think, it's funny when you talk about people. I mean, I love animals. I've got a soft. My wife and I both really really do. And so, people that don't like animals, I have a hard time. I respect them and I love them, where they are, right? I mean, everybody's got a right to be who they are. But I just wonder, I wonder who hurt them in their life. I wonder where they're still got a little bit of a wound,
Yeah,
because if you can't accept the unconditional love of a puppy or a kitten or any animal like that, there's something going on with you. That's not about the animal,
of
you
course.
know?
Yeah,
There's,
and I understand people have had bad experiences with animals and stuff, but
yeah.
and I was even dog bit when I was little. I was probably 3 or 4, and I even got a scar to this day right here on my lip, but and part of it was me just because of I was on the back of a long story short, on the back of a truck jumping around, and we were out in this hayfield, and I guess the dog got upset and didn't really, he didn't know what was
Probably
going.
got excited.
Yeah, we all got excited, and he just took a little chunk out of my lip here, but, um,
Oh, man.
I still love dogs to this day. I mean, it's no fault to him, no fault to me, I guess, but this, dog didn't like what was going on, but yeah, but still to this day, it's just like, "Hey, man, these guys, man," I give them a lot of crap, but they're my dudes, man. They're
Yeah, they seem to be very happy.
yeah,
They're very well loved. They
give
look
them a
like
treat
the
and
type
a
of,
toy and get a blanket, and they're good to go, man. That's their thing.
well, but it's interesting. That's one of the ways I've hired a lot of people in my life, been a leader in, the software industry. And one of the things I would do, animals was one thing. You really couldn't set up anything like that. But occasionally I would meet people for lunch, especially depending upon how important the thing was for me,
Sure.
how important the role was, right? But if you really wanted to find out, if you wanted to see what someone was really like, take them to a restaurant and have them mess up the meal a little bit,
Mhm.
you know, and then see how that person responds. Because I tell you, the service industry, I know a lot of countries will say it's mandatory that you serve in the military. Well, I think in the states it ought to be mandatory that you're a waiter or a waitress for a couple of years,
Oh yes.
because I think you learn, the importance of the role, the importance of the job, how to do it with a smile on your face, even when the customer might be rude. And then as you go through the rest of your life, you appreciate those who serve. And it's not just waiters and waitresses; it's across a variety of industries.
Yeah, the
But
whole
those people that are in that front line, taking care of you as a person, as a traveler, as a diner, as a car renter, or whatever it is that you're doing, those people are in a tough. That's a tough role. And I'm always amazed how people can speak poorly to people as if they're judging them less than worthy of their respect because of the role that they're in. I've never understood that. I'm sure there have been times in my life. I mean, I'm not perfect. I'm not claiming to be, that I've been short with people,
of
but it's
course.
never been because I disrespected what they were doing as a living. It's never been because of their role. Might be because I was in a hurry or they messed something up and I didn't handle it well, whatever. But you see people that are just rude to people like that out in public, and it just tells you a lot about them. And
Yeah.
again, I go back to, who hurt you, man? You know, who hurt you? Why are you still hurting at this stage in your life where you have to treat another person like that?
Yeah, talking about I've been working in those industries too. I was a
Yeah,
host for a while, and I actually worked in retail through college. And man, there's
that's
some,
tough.
yeah, man.
That's tough.
Like you said, you learn a lot of lessons, and it's tough, man. Especially being, a cashier at a major. I was a cashier at Walmart for basically all of college. But anyway, but you learn a lot, you see a lot too. But
Oh
uh,
yeah,
one of the things though that, yeah, it's just like I don't know, like in talking about with the human mind and everything, that it's almost ingrained in to some people's mind just to have this ego about them and walk around like they are the hierarchy of all of hierarchy, I guess, and that, they can
right.
go wrong, and that's why, and they think people should be below them for whatever reason. It's just like, man, just let the ego go, man, and I wonder if that's just because kinda like what you just said, that they've never had a humbling experience in life, that either they've always gotten everything for them, or everything's came easy, and they just never had to put in this extra work, and just they've never had this, I take a loss on something, I guess is what I'm trying to say, that
Right.
everything's been
Right.
perfect their whole life.
Right. Or what I find a lot of times is this overcompensation. So here's somebody that, they feel like they're finally making a little money. And so, but the only way they feel good is to show somebody else that they're better than them,
Yes.
or to act like they're better than them. It's like, the way that I'll build myself up is to tear other people down. And the truth, the universal truth of that is that's not sustainable.
No.
Sooner or later, as a human being, you're going to realize you're being a real jerk, right?
Mhm.
And so, and I wish, it happened sooner than later, but I think sometimes people feel like that's how they should act if they're successful and they're doing well. When
Yeah.
in fact, you find people that are just really successful in their field and are financially very well off, that are the most gracious and humble people, that you would ever meet, and those people, and a lot of it, in my opinion, it comes down to your self image. Are you able to love yourself and forgive yourself? And so that, when you do reach that point that you're able to love yourself and forgive yourself, you're not taking anything out on anybody else, and you're not trying to overcome your own lack of self worth, self confidence, or whatever by it tearing this person down, right?
Yeah.
There's a saying, we were talking about sayings a lot, Chris. It's like the world will forgive you anything but success. They'll forgive you anything but success. It is easier to say, Oh, I knew that guy was a, bastard, or I knew that guy was a thief or a liar or a cheat or, whatever. It's easier to say that because, okay, he's just like me, than to give somebody accolades and say, wow, job well done. You know, that guy's got his game together. That guy's knows who he is and what he wants, right? But the other interesting side of that is those people that do feel that way, that do know who they are and do know what they want, are are those people that it's almost foolish to try to cut them down or attack them, right? Because it's like they're Teflon to that. It's not going to matter.
Of course.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you mean, man.
So it's like that's not about when we go through life. When you go through life, when you have somebody that goes off and is irrational and mean and whatever to you, it's not about you.
Yeah,
It's not.
it's usually that person's fighting some other demon somewhere else, right?
Oh yeah, and you never know what their journey is. You never know where they are on it, you know. And so I try to. I mean, I don't get that a lot. And when I do, I just try to, I'll send them a little thought. I'll send them a little healing thought, man. I hope whatever's going on with you, this ain't about me. You know, I hope it gets better. I hope you get better. I hope you find peace. You know,
What was
I
one of
hope
your
you make
keys
peace.
to like success and learning that finding peace within yourself after that rocky road you went through and just learning like, did you start reading more? Did you start looking up? I know you found Tony Robbins, and was it just changing the way you thought about things? Was that one of the keys
Well,
to
that
your
that
success?
was one of the things. Yeah, I mean, when you learn that, when you really learn, I think we start out thinking that we are hardwired to be a certain way, you
Yeah.
know, and the opposite is true. We may be hardwired to have certain tendencies, and we may have created some hardwiring by watching what people have done as we've grown, especially when we were younger, depending upon who we were hanging out with. Sometimes you can have great parents. I had great parents. My parents were awesome. They still are. But if you hang around with the wrong group, or you hang around with the wrong role models, or you choose the wrong role models, you sort of learn patterns of thinking and behaving, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to get to a point where you understand who you are. That's the only way to change those underlying habits and rituals. And that's, of course, right down Tony's alley. So the
Mhm.
biggest thing you can do first, it's like, the Greeks said, know thyself and nothing in excess, by the way. That's what a great saying, I think. Really, you have to know who you are, what makes you happy, what brings you joy. A lot of us have forgotten what brings us joy, what makes us laugh uncontrollably, what makes us want to dance, right? And
Yes.
if anybody that is afraid to go out and dance when they hear music they like, hey, let go of that. You know, I mean, who cares? Trust me,
Exactly.
the people in the room care less about you. I mean, unless you're doing, belly flops and you're rolling across the floor and knocking people. I mean, honestly, nobody cares. If it brings you joy, do it. There are
Yeah.
people that when you allow yourself to be authentically who you are, and when you allow yourself to be joyful, again, authentically. I mean, I'm not trying to make myself joyful because I want the attention. I'm just enjoying whatever's going on. I'm involved in the moment. This is me. This is who I am. You're going to attract other people that appreciate your confidence, that
Mhm.
appreciate your honesty, and you give them permission to be who they are and enjoy what they enjoy.
Yeah.
And so, when you live, in my opinion, when you live your life as close to who you are authentically as you can, you draw those people to you that love and appreciate that, and you in turn will love and appreciate them. And those are the people you want to keep in your life, right?
Yes. Yes.
So, but it's, the hardest part of that is for you to be honest with yourself and for you to be non-judgmental for yourself. You
Mhm.
don't have to be the best dancer or a great dancer or even who cares? Nobody cares. If it brings you joy, go do it, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
And if I could get more people to do that, man, that would make me happy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand, man. And this kind of echo on what you're saying, though. One thing I've learned over my journey, I guess, that like kind of what you were touching on earlier about how everything is almost perfect, and everything's always gummy bears and raindrops and there's nothing that can go wrong. But, it's okay to be vulnerable at times and go out there and try something new and like, hey, and tell people that you don't know what you're doing or we're just trying something new in that way because other people are thinking the same thing too. Like you said, that even some people were probably either applauding you for going out and dancing, or they're just as nervous as you are, and they're actually applauding you for like, oh man, he's actually got the balls to go out there and dance and
That's
what
right.
everybody looks like and stuff. And
Somebody's on the dance floor. Yeah. There
yeah,
you go.
some people envy that, and that's one of the things that, like you're saying, like, hey, if we go out and have a good time, who cares if I don't have to be the best dancer here at this wedding here? I just want to go out and enjoy myself, and just
Right.
and not saying go out there and like what you're saying, push people down and do something wild and crazy or whatever it was, but just
Right.
I think everyone knows the social rules and social limits and like what they can and can't do and how to dance and so have a good time and
Right.
not make a complete fool of themselves. And like, yeah, man, and I applaud people who are willing to take a chance and that are actually also willing to say that, hey man, I didn't really know how to dance, but I wanted to go dance, so I tried. And
Right.
that means a lot to me because it's like, oh, they are human, they're just like me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
they have their insecurities, they have their confidence,
Oh, yeah.
it's everybody, it ain't just me, you know?
Right. And it's interesting, I think as males, I hate to, I don't want to be whatever. I mean, I'm speaking from the heart about this. I think a lot of times you'll find, not all the time, and I'm certain that this is true with females as well in different ways, but a lot of times men tend to be competitive, you
Oh,
know.
yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed that, but
Oh,
and
yeah.
it can be in all aspects of life, right? And so, it's something that so when we talk about, you know, getting together, doing some things that show that you're vulnerable, show, not being afraid to look foolish. Those are things that as men, at least speaking as a man, I know this of myself, right? I know that I have to kind of be aware of that
Yes.
because I'm not in competition with them and I don't care. I've got a good friend of mine and, he's still in the corporate world, of course. And, he applauds me opening my practice and being able to build a good practice. But he's still in the corporate world. He's a little bit older than I am, and every time I see him, he's still competing. He's still competing. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
He still wants to. He wants to. He still wants to be one of the cool kids and all that kind of stuff. And he is. He is. He's very gifted. He's a great person. So I'm not in any way knocking him, but it's just a thing I can see with him where he's still like, he's aware that he's the older guy, so he wants to wear the Apple Watch and
Oh, yeah.
drive, he buy the electric car and make sure because you got to be on top of all of that, right?
Of course. Of
And
course.
so and
Play the
it's
image.
it's an interesting dynamic though, you know,
Sure.
because he's by far not the. I'm not again. I'm not criticizing. It's just something that I see that I notice, and it's in business. There's a degree of that you have to do, but I think you want to be aware of it. I think you want to be aware that does it really matter? Do I really have to, do I really have to have this kind of a sort of tension,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
When I'm in these situations, and the truth is no. What you think is so important, often what's so important to us when we're out or when we're interacting with other people, we're building relationships. Other people don't even know you're thinking about that.
Of
They don't
course.
even, they don't even have any idea that that's important to you, and you're stressing about it and creating all these other scenarios about, what might be going on. And they don't even know, man, they're not even aware you're there half
Yeah.
the time. So
Exactly.
it's all of this that we're kind of talking around. The important thing is you got to know who you are and what brings you joy. And
Yep.
you have to know what happiness means for you.
Mm-hmm.
If it may mean, I got to make a certain amount of money. I want to have a certain status. I want significance because of my achievements. That may be what makes you happy. But I will tell you, if you really look at it, it is going to be more subtle things. It's going to be the relationship you have with your children. It's going to be the relationship you have with your siblings and your parents. It's going to be dear friends that you've had most of your life
Of
or
course.
in your youth that have always stood by you and made you laugh. And those things that create that harmony with our people has a lot more meaning than we pay attention to, I think.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and that's a real good point too. That just knowing that stuff and being very self aware, just because of in personally speaking though, like I noticed when I was in college and going through college that my morals and values changed over time. What I was really wanting them with, and I was kind of like you, everyone was basically told me that, hey, the higher degree you get, if you go to school or go to college, you'll get a great job coming out and you'll be making tons of money and all
Right.
that good stuff. And that's not always the case. But at that time, like that's what I guess I was kind of focused on as well, was like get through college and, have a good time as well. But,
Right.
get the degree and you'll be set. You'll have success.
Right.
But I mean, then going through my, again, long story short, just going through my little journey that over time I started learning more and figuring out what my morals and values in life really were. And they started changing over time. And did you freeze up again?
One.
Oh, you're back. Okay, there we go.
I
Sorry.
was talking to you, were frozen.
Yeah, no. So, but again, like I got through, I'm a young 36 right now. And I found out 10 years ago, my morals and values are different compared to what they are now. And far of what brings me happiness and, you know, what brings me happiness and joy in my life. And, do I have good relationships? Am I making, $1 million a year? No, but can I go out and to a fancy restaurant and not have to worry about the bill? I don't have to worry. Yeah, that's fine with me. Like that, that means a lot right there to me, just breaking bread with people and sharing those memories rather than just, sitting on my deathbed, like, damn, I wish I would have got that iPhone 14, or whatever, 2 years. Yeah. But like stuff like that, that's what's going to take me to long. Yeah, that's what I want in my head whenever my time comes, is that, man, that was good. Like I like the way I lived rather than just saying like, oh, I lived the way I wanted to rather than how I was technically supposed to be, quote unquote.
Well, and all this stuff that you accumulated, right?
Yeah.
All of these things that you accumulate. There's a commercial on TV. I'm sure you've seen it, but it's got a young lady, and I don't even know I can't even tell you what it's about or what the product is, or I think it's a show. But there's a young lady that has set up all these dominoes all over the place. You know what I mean? And it's like extremely complicated. It's got to take hours. It might take days. I don't know. And she says, as long as it brings you joy, it doesn't matter what other people think. As long as it brings you joy, it doesn't matter what other people think. And that's pretty close to the secret right there. It's just being able to understand for you, because there are a lot of people, and we've touched on this a couple of times. There's a lot of people that are living their dad's life, that are living their mom's life, that are living, their goals were set by their parents when they were 18 or 15 or 12, and so you're thinking, I got to live up to mom and dad's expectation. I've got to do it like dad did it. I've got to do it like mom did it. I want mom to be proud of me. I want dad to be proud of me, because when we're young, we crave that approval of our elders, or you may have had a favorite teacher that, oh man, I want, Dr. Patrick to think I'm doing the right thing, or there's just a lot of that drives a lot of our decisions that is separate from who we really are. And we've got to learn where we are and what we want versus living for others and trying to please them. And I think up until a certain point in our lives, we all sort of fight that. Not all of us. I see some of the younger generation, they don't give a flip ever since. When they were at 15, they decided they were going to, they're not listening to mom and dad, right?
Of course.
And again, I think some of that is overcompensation. They're trying to be significant in being so rebellious, right? And so, but whatever. But that is something that we all fight, and we have to look within and say, who am I really? And it doesn't have to be this big, like, War and Peace novel about every single aspect of your whole life. It needs to be real simple. What do you value? What do you pay attention to? And then what brings you joy? What really makes you happy, or makes you content, or makes you feel safe? Or when do you feel really loved? When do you feel you can be really who you are and you're going to be accepted anyway? And when you find that person, by the way, you should think about settling down with them if you're that lucky. Right?
I agree, Dan. And I think it's a perfect way to take this podcast home right there on that note right there and end this on a good note.
There you go.
Cool. But well, thanks for being here. Thanks for talking with me a little bit. If you want to plug anything, or if you want people to find you and all that good stuff, how do they do that?
Well, the best way to do it would probably be on LinkedIn. It's Dan Howington, Howington. I have a couple of things that I offer free. Anybody that contacts me on LinkedIn, I have a free sales assessment I'll do that for you. I'll talk to your sales reps. I'll go through a process. I'll tell you what I think, and that's all free for you. I also have, as a life coach, I do work with the VIA Institute, and I do character strength surveys for people. And it's all based on positive psychology. It's a short 20-minute survey. It'll tell me your top character strengths. I'll send that to you. I'll give you my read on that. I'll spend 30 minutes with you, and I'll tell you what I think it means when your top strengths come out, and we'll talk about that as well. So character strengths are kind of cool. When you're involved in things in your job or in your life that play to your strengths, tends to make you happier.
Yep.
And tends to make you feel more content and more successful. So it's pretty powerful. It's pretty easy. So again, contact me on LinkedIn, and I'll be glad to set you up.
Yeah. Real quick side note. I've done a couple of those. I used to work in higher education, and we'd always do these, I don't know, what do you call them? Like they're icebreakers, but like a getaway for the employees, like I forgot the word. A retreat, retreat.
Yeah, retreat. There you go.
And then, that was kind of our thing. We would do like it was always like a strengths finder thing we did one time, a personality test they'd have us do. And, you would talk about like what you got and why do you think you scored the way you did, or, whatever words describe you, like what do you think is pretty true. And most of it was pretty true. And it also made me feel good inside actually knowing that, hey, this kind of does relate to me.
Yeah, that's what I find, man. There's a lot of people, and we've talked about this a lot in the podcast, but there's a lot of people that are hurting, and especially now at the holidays, I think a lot of people, sometimes they tend to self-reflect when it's Christmas and it's New Year's, and they think, well, I'm estranged from my family, or I don't have a good relationship, or I'm by myself on Christmas. What am I going to do on New Year's? And you sit and you start beating yourself up, and I'm telling you, you're powerful beyond measure, and more people are loving and caring and pulling for you than you possibly know.
Yes.
So anybody that's having any doubts or down, or you need to feel better, you call me. You get on LinkedIn, my number's there. You call me, I'll spend 30 minutes with you, and I'll get you kicked off in 2023. I promise you.
That's the way to take this podcast home right there. That's
all right, buddy. Well, good.
Well, thanks for being here. Anything else you want to say, or anything? I think so.
Said a lot already. I think.
Cool, man. Well, Dan, thank you again.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, this was a good conversation. I'm glad we did this. So
me too, man.
All right, folks. Thanks right here. Buddy.
See you, man.